Thanks, Tom, and I'm Randy Hansen. In today's World News headlines, North Korea rocket launch fails. And rallies test Syrian ceasefire after scattered violence. And U.S. joins Iran nuclear talks in Turkey. Pakistani parliament demands end to U.S. strikes. And FIA proceeds with Bahrain car race. U.S. voices concern over jailed hunger striker. An Egyptian protester opposes election roll for Mubarak loyalist. And Zimmerman makes first court appearance in Trayvon killing. And Chicago police to use LRAD sound cannons at NATO protests. And scores arrested protesting closure of Chicago health clinics. And administration withdraws executive order barring anti-LGBTQ discrimination. And Justice Department files first indictment for anti-LGBTQ attack under hate crimes law. And Mars Inc., latest company to cut ALEC ties. And Planned Parenthood sues Texas for state ban. And U.S. reaches $1 billion settlement in native land trust cases. And prisoners sentenced to 17 years despite free speech claims. GVTV News would like to say the views expressed on our news broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views of NCTV Digital Media Center. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's first world news story, a long-range rocket fired by North Korea in defiance of international protests has failed before reaching orbit. The North Korean regime launched the rocket earlier yesterday despite warnings it would face further diplomatic isolation. The rocket quickly broke through several pieces before falling into the sea. North Korea has said the launch was to test out weather satellite, but Western nations saw it as cover for trying out a long-range missile. And that was the other day, not yesterday. UN Security Council is expected to vote on whether to send an observer mission to Syria to monitor government compliance with the peace plan brokered by the UN Arab League Special Envoy Kofi Annan. The ceasefire has come under doubt after activists said the government troops had continued to deploy tanks, snipers, and armed checkpoints in key areas. Syrian Observatory of Human Rights says at least 4 people were shot dead in Syria on Thursday, including 3 people killed by snipers in the city of Homs. Scattered violence has been reported, with clashes erupting between government troops and rebels near the Turkish border. Basma Kadmani of the Syrian National Council said the government response to the peaceful protests will be a key test. Said snipers are deployed across the country in all the populated areas and centers. There was been a big increase in the number of checkpoints. Those checkpoints are heavily armed. The real test for us is if people can go down and demonstrate peacefully. Whether that will be possible, this is really reality check. Diplomats from the U.S. and 5 other countries are in Turkey over the weekend with key talks with Iranian officials on Iran's nuclear activities. Talks are being held following the imposition of harsher international sanctions as well as continued threats of military attacks from Israel or the United States. In Washington, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the U.S. will seek new assurances from Iran that they are not pursuing a nuclear arsenal. She said, "We are receiving signals that they are bringing ideas to the table. They assert that their program is purely peaceful. They point to a fatwa that the Supreme Leader has issued against the pursuit of nuclear weapons. We want them to demonstrate clearly in the actions they propose that they will truly abandon any nuclear weapon ambition." Pakistan's parliament has unanimously demanded the end of U.S. drone strikes in Pakistani soil. In a resolution adopted by 440 members, the parliament called for an end to the drone attacks as well as a ban on all private military contractors and intelligence operatives working inside Pakistan. Pakistan has continued to tactically allow drone strikes despite previous votes along similar lines. But on Thursday, Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Gilani vowed to implement the new measure both in letter and spirit. International Automobile Federation, the FIA, has confirmed it will proceed with the Formula One Racing Championship in Bahrain later this month, despite calls for events cancellation in solidarity with Bahraini's protesters. The event was cancelled last year in Bahrain, launched by a major crackdown on pro-democracy activists. The Obama administration is slowly paying more lip service to the plight of the Bahraini protesters. This last week, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said the U.S. has continued concern for the life of Abdulhadi Akwahaja. The jailed activist has been on a hunger strike for more than 2 months. Last Sunday marked the 60th day of Akwahaja's hunger strike, an anniversary of his arrest. A massive crowd has gathered in Cairo's Tahrir Square to protest the inclusion of figures from the regime of Hosni Mubarak in the coming presidential election. Protest comes 1 week after Mubarak's intelligence officer Omar Suleiman announced his entry into the race. And George Zimmerman appeared in court on Thursday, 1 day after he was finally charged with the killing of Trayvon Martin. Zimmerman briefly spoke in response to Judge Mark Hare. Judge Mark Hare said, "Mr. Zimmerman." George Zimmerman said, "Yes, sir." Judge Mark Hare said, "You're appearing here for your first appearance at this time to be charged murder in the second degree, and you are represented by Mr. Omari. Is that true?" And Zimmerman replied, "Yes, sir." Zimmerman faces a minimum of 25 years in prison. A bail hearing will likely be held next week, followed Zimmerman's formal arraignment on May 29th. And police in Chicago are preparing to deploy controversial sound cannons against protesters at the G8 NATO summit next month. Those so-called long-range acoustic devices, or LRADs, emit painful and potentially harmful tones over long distances. The device was created for military use, but it is deployed against protesters for the first time in a 2009 G20 summit in Pittsburgh. American Civil Liberties Union later filed lawsuit on behalf of bystanders. Karen Piper, who said she suffered permanent hearing loss, while the American Tinnitus Association said Pittsburgh protesters had been acoustically assaulted. They compared the sound pressure to what armed forces might face from an improvised explosive device. Massive numbers of protesters are expected in Chicago when the summit begins next month. Nearly 24 people have been arrested protesting the pending closure of a mental health clinic in Chicago. Chicago's Mayor Rahm Emanuel has ordered the closure of Woodland Mental Health Center and 5 other clinics in a bid to slash public spending. Supporters say the closure will adversely affect the thousands of people who rely on clinic services. The protesters were detained overnight while barricading themselves inside Woodland as dozens of supporters gathered outside. So see, Rahm Emanuel, now he's kicking the mentally ill out onto the street. Obama administration has canceled an executive order that would have banned workplace discrimination against LGBTQ people by federal contractors. There is currently no federal law in place to prevent employers from discriminating on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. Obama administration's decision has come under criticism when the LGBTQ activists say people are now fired simply for being gay or transgender. And the Justice Department has filed the first time ever indictment in hate crimes based on the victim's sexual orientation. 2 Kentucky men were accused of kidnapping Kevin Pennington, beating him near to death. Defendants are the first to be charged under the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, which was enacted in 2009. Both Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. died as a result of violent hate crimes committed more than a decade ago. Snack food giant Mars has become the latest corporation to publicly cut ties with the right-wing American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. ALEC has come under sustained public protest for backing a number of controversial measures, including the so-called Stand Your Ground gun laws, which critics say enable the killing of Trayvon Martin. Mars is the maker of Skittles, candy that Trayvon Martin was carrying when George Zimmerman shot him to death. Mars' severance of its ties to ALEC follows other companies including McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Kraft. Planned Parenthood is suing the state of Texas for barring them from government-funded health program for low-income women simply because they also provide abortions. The suit alleges Texas has violated the group's constitutional rights to free speech by banning contracts between the state health commission and entities that affiliated with abortion providers. The program offers cancer and health screening as well as birth control services to some 130,000 low-income women, about 40% of whom are served through Planned Parenthood. The Obama administration has cut off federal funding for the Texas program because of state ban. Justice Department has announced a $1 billion settlement with 41 Native American tribes for the mismanagement of land trusts by the federal government. The settlement will resolve dozens of long-standing claims. A U.S. citizen and Boston area resident whose terrorism conviction sparked allegations of trampling free speech has been sentenced to 17.5 years behind bars. Tariq Mahana was found guilty last year of conspiring to support al-Qaeda and other terrorism charges. FBI initially courted Mahana to become an informant following his 2009 arrest, but he wound up being jailed in solitary confinement. Jury rejected the defense argument Mahana was acting well within his First Amendment rights when he posted online that he supported Muslims resisting U.S. occupation. On Thursday, more than 300 supporters packed a federal courtroom in Massachusetts in support of Mahana at his sentencing. And that's it for World News Today. We'd like to thank one of our underwriters and supporters of your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News.
Soundcheck Music Center, the Rock and Roll Connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
No one needs anyone, they don't even just pretend. John is an American. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter, and pictures in the blotter not from these actual events but used for visual aid only. 7:44 a.m., a caller from 200 block of Sutton Way reported seeing a coffin in the meadow across from Cedar Park Apartments that had been there for several months. Responding officers located a pile of plywood. 8:11 a.m., a caller from local business in South Auburn Street advised there was mail in the bathroom refusing to leave. And 8:21 a.m., a caller from Dorsey Drive reported a woman on top of an RV pulled up her nightgown and exposed herself to several children. A male subject was crying as he attempted to stop her. Officers were unable to locate the pair. 12:32 p.m., caller from 600 block of Morgan Ranch reported a solicitor going door to door telling individuals his mother kicked him out of the house for playing too many video games and enrolled him into a contest. He asked the caller personal questions, became agitated when callers chose not to answer the questions. And 2:30 p.m., a caller from 100 block of West Main Street reported a male subject displaying signs of intoxication as his pants were repeatedly falling down. 6:30 p.m., caller from 100 block of Idaho Maryland Road claimed a male attempted to use counterfeit bills to purchase items. And 8:55 p.m., caller from 100 block of Lytton Drive reported a male subject in a black truck was not wearing any clothing. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office, 1:05 p.m., caller from Norleen Way reported a male subject continued to follow his daughter in a vehicle. And 3:26 p.m., caller from Relief Hill Road reported several large dogs on the loose. And 3:29 p.m., caller from 29,000 block Highway 49 reported theft of a hose and nozzle by a neighbor. And 5:25 p.m., a caller from Conifer Lane reported a relative had his life threatened by his roommate. And that's it for the police blotter today. Now we'd like to thank another one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us. GVTV News. Christopher's Old World Deli and Catering Company has brought its delicious food and service downtown Grass Valley. Like desserts? They got him. You like international style lunches? They got him. Christopher's Deli and catering for parties, get-togethers, weddings, or whatever. Open 7 days a week. In local news headlines, busy police dispatchers honored across the nation, and media center members seek resignation from board of directors. And Haven Underground venue lives up to its name. In today's first local story, in 2011, dispatchers with Grass Valley Police Department processed more than 27,600 incoming calls via 911 and non-emergency lines working 24 hours per week, 7 days per week. Their efforts were recognized Friday as part of a National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, April 8th through the 14th. These highly trained professionals provide support to police, fire, and ambulance services throughout California each and every day, Police Captain Rex Marks said. Next time you call 911, remember, call only for immediate emergency assistance, medical, fire, or police. Be prepared to provide your location and any essential information the dispatcher may need. Stay on the line until told to hang up. You may be transferred to another agency. Remember that you might not be the only one calling. There are other incidents taking place. If you misdial 911, please stay on the line so they can verify there is no emergency. Your 911 call, if made from a cellular phone, could potentially be answered in Grass Valley, even if you're located outside the city limits. Be sure to give your location to the dispatcher. National Telecommunicator Week was first conceived by Patricia Anderson of Contra Costa County, California Sheriff's Office in 1981 and was made national by Congress in the 1990s. In a story by Christopher Rosacker of the Union, members of the Nevada County Digital Media Center, formerly known as in Nevada City Television, NCTV, have begun to circulate a petition demanding the resignation of 3 of the 8 members of the board of directors over allegations of financial malfeasance and nepotism. Specifically, the petition is addressed to the board president, Susan Rogers, and board members Allison Lehman and Cheryl Rubin. The budget is all right. The board is making tough decisions in a tough economy. All nonprofits are facing challenging times, Rogers said, but there has been no fiscal malfeasance. 2 of the board members, Stan Lathrop and Judy Nielsen, had already resigned before the petition was written, but following the resignation of Executive Director Paul Minicucci, which was announced in February, the petition, although not yet delivered to remaining board of directors, was sent to nearly 200 Media Center members in early April, shortly after Minicucci's last day. His exit came 2 years after he took the reins and amid a transition from the Media Center's facility at the old Armory building off Zion Street in Nevada City into production facilities at the Nevada City Tech Center, space subleased from Grass Valley USA, LLC, known as local group as Grass Valley Group. Shortly after Minicucci's departure, former special events coordinator, me, equipment manager, and Gail Woodman, a volunteer and intern coordinator, were laid off in early April, along with interim engineer Spence Stokel. I would call it difficult transition period, said Nielsen, who has volunteered to continue as transitional coordinator, a volunteer role not related to her relinquished board responsibilities. Concurrently, the Media Center hired Emma Santa as a part-time interim executive director, and Jay Kucha has taken a temporary leave of absence of the board of directors to serve as interim chief engineer. The move to the Tech Center was scheduled to be completed at the beginning of April, but a combination of Comcast delays and mixed messages from Grass Valley Group's new ownership have forced the Media Center to pay yet another $1,250 a month per rent, plus nearly $800 per month in utilities at the Armory building, Woodman said. The relationship hasn't been what we wanted, said Lieutenant Will Martin of the California National Guard, which owns the building. We want better control of who is in there, and they're talking about the Armory. As executive director, Minicucci faced constant pressure from the National Guard to vacate the Armory, Woodman said, after it was determined not safe in the event of an earthquake. Media Center's new final move deadline is mid-May, Martin said. Rent at the tech center will be about $2,400 per month, with utilities including in that amount about 3,000 square feet of space, according to the source familiar with the situation. Minicucci masterminded the negotiations with Comcast, Nevada County, Grass Valley Group, and the cities of Nevada City and Grass Valley in a very complicated conversation of moving the station. During the build of the new studio, Minicucci saved more than $40,000 in construction costs with bids and saved an original estimated $250,000 to bring fiber optics to the Grass Valley Group. You have forced the resignation of the qualified executive director in order to hire a friend who has no qualifications for the job, reads a portion of the petition. Resignation or retirement, Rogers maintains Minicucci's resignation was merely a retirement for personal reasons and that he was not forced out. We appreciate Paul's services to the organization prior to his retirement, Rogers said. However, members like myself and Woodman said Rogers micromanaged and harassed Minicucci to simultaneously cut costs and raise funds while he managed the station and negotiated the facility's transition until he resigned. All of a sudden, he got painted as a bad guy. To this day, there is no letter of resignation, Woodman said. The next thing he knows, we are talking about interim executive director. When reached by phone Friday, Minicucci would not comment on specifics of his departure for this story. A retirement party to be hosted by the Media Center for Minicucci was canceled when he indicated he would not attend. I didn't want to celebrate when I heard that some of the people on my staff would be laid off, Minicucci said. It was not appropriate to be in a celebratory mood given the current climate. Instead of a dozen of Minicucci's friends and co-workers recently held a private gathering at the Willow Steakhouse off Highway 49. It was more of a family affair than a public celebration, Minicucci said. Fundraising cited in the petition. Petitioners also say the board failed in its responsibilities to raise necessary funds. In the last 2 years, besides the donation of services from board members such as Jay Kusa, and the board has generated $2,000 in fundraising, mostly from Rogers, Woodman said. They refused to raise money, Woodman said. The answer was always to cut staff. Part of the Media Center's estimated $110,000 annual budget comes from contracts to broadcast government meetings such as the Board of Supervisors and City Council meetings. Some funding also comes from a few small grants. Well, actually, I think there's one. Nearly $50,000 annually comes from Comcast, which is mandated, like other cable operators, to allocate part of its broadcast spectrum to public access and provide funding from a small portion of Comcast customers' bills for that programming. Some board members seem to want to focus on living in supplemental contract monies alone without raising community support. The Media Center of Directors' next meeting is 6 p.m. Tuesday at the Hauser Room, Nevada County Superintendent of Schools' office at the corner of Zion Street and Ridge Road. And it should be a very big crowd there. We're a volunteer board. We're trying to do what's best for the organization, Rogers said. We don't feel it benefits our members or the community to discuss it in the press. We're looking forward to meeting our members and having a good discussion at our board meeting on Tuesday. The active board president, Susan Rogers, has a background in marketing, communication, public relations for nonprofits and is an advocate for media literacy education. She runs a resource website, medialiteracy.com. Paul Champagne, the board treasurer, is a certified public accountant. Christine Kelly is a program director at Sierra Mentoring Partnership, a Nevada County nonprofit that develops youth mentoring programs. Allison Lehman is director of the Department of Social Services, the DSS, for Nevada County, and James Cameron, an engineer at AJA Video, and previously with the Grass Valley Group. McCann's term expires on June 30th, indicated he will not likely continue on the board in order to pursue other personal interests. Robert Trent founded and is executive director of Sierra Commons. He has held management and director positions with Compaq, Intel, Oracle, and Broderbund, and other high-tech firms. Cheryl Rubin, a former broadcast journalist who transitioned into public relations, also a member of the Center of Nonprofit Leadership Board. Not active, Judy Nielsen, the board secretary, resigned March 21st, shortly after Executive Director Paul Minicucci retirement, citing personal reasons. Her terms also have expired on June 30th. Nielsen worked in the office of Nevada County Superintendent of Schools, including 12 years as a director of the Imaginarium in Nevada County. Stan Lathrop, a digital arts teacher at Lyman Gilmore Middle School, resigned on the board at the end of February, citing his impending retirement. Minicucci's leave and his upcoming term expiration, also June 30th. Jay Kusa, broadcast engineer, former Grass Valley Group developer, who currently an independent consultant. Kusa, the former board vice president, has also taken temporary leave in absence from the Media Center's board to serve as interim chief engineer. Any questions, you can talk to Chris Rosaker, crosiker, And another Chris Rosaker story. No stranger to good music, Nevada City's discreet venue, the Haven Underground, has a name that has only described its literal location as 226 Broad Street, but also the reputation of its patrons. I don't think a lot of people know about it yet, but it's definitely growing in popularity, said Stephen Stackhouse, an 18-year-old Nevada Union High School student and co-editor of Mike's High School newspaper. One of the great things about it, said co-director Sarah Zahn, is it transports you to another place. You don't feel like you're in Nevada City. You feel like you're in a contemporary urban environment. The low-lit den boasts a bar, a stage for music and dance floor, and an area for lounging with couches and entice a mellow mood. Stackhouse said he probably makes it to the Haven 3 or 4 times a month, admits that more than his friends, but always with a crowd. It is a venue he frequents the most in Nevada County, he said. The shows are the most affordable, and it is a wide variety, anywhere from folk to punk to techno to sludge metal. There's a little bit of everything there, Stackhouse said. As more people venture out and check out the shows, they will find it's pretty fun. But the Haven isn't just a place where 240 people can jam out discreetly in Nevada City's downtown historic district on a weekend. It's also a place for regular events, said co-owner Brooks Tomlinson. A community center isn't the right phrase. It is more of a venue, but we want to incorporate more into it. Since opening May 2011, Haven has also hosted soup contests, bake sales, poetry readings, fundraisers, a C. Jane Do workshop, after parties for Wild and Scenic, film festival, yoga events, and even a couple of magic shows. We want to be as diverse as possible. We don't want to overflood the scene with one thing, Tomlinson said. We do want to have music down there because we believe music is important, but we are accepting of everything as long as it's positive to the community. We're not just trying to appease the younger crowd. Along with Tomlinson in ownership is his wife Isis Pygett, Eve Bradford, and Isis Andraya. And they call themselves the Hive because we're busy as bees, Tomlinson said. And that's it for local news today. Now we'd like to thank the Union, Amy Goodman, Associated Press, and Reuters for the source number news, and you for watching. You can watch us, Channel 11, 8 a.m., 3 p.m., 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, Suddenlink 16 in Truckee and Alta Sierra, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. It should be Tuesday. Hope you had a good weekend.